And we know for 3 years the family of Khannenje, who died in a horrific car crash, has waited for justice to be served for her death, which left her husband Martin Bogus nursing serious injuries. It has been a dramatic case in and outside the courtroom. And finally, the court has said he was not to blame and acquitted. He is co-accused of all charges. Just what happened to the investigations? That's a probing question. Police are now under the spotlight over the handling of the case in what appears to be a conspiracy to defeat justice.
When a defiant Apostle James Nganga of Neno Evangelism Center was asked about the fatal crash that left a woman dead and her husband nursing injuries, he said he was innocent and directed the storm at the investigating officers, saying, "There are laws in this country and police are supposed to do their investigation and get to the bottom of the matter." 3 years later, the flamboyant televangelist walks away a free man but leaves behind a trail of dirt with allegations of a conspiracy to defeat justice. The co-conspirators being the police, whom he said were supposed to unravel the case. But how was the case bungled? Soon after the accident that claimed the life of Khannenje along the Naivasha-Nairobi highway on 26th July 2015, public uproar forced the Inspector General of Police, Joseph Boynet, to give the police account of events of what happened when it clearly appeared Nganga was off the hook after the accident. Boynet, in a surprise move, defended the controversial preacher in a series of tweets saying a man named Simon Mukuria was test driving the vehicle, registration KCD 060Q, on behalf of Valley Road Motors. He said the Range Rover was on General Dealer's KG license with valid insurance and was on test drive when the accident occurred. But witnesses placed Nganga at the scene and saw him get out of the car and into another before it sped off. The contradiction started from the IG getting the plate numbers wrong. The hasty release of the Range Rover from the Tigoni police station was also unusual. The IG later backtracked and ordered fresh investigations after public outrage and claims of a cover-up. Days later, Nganga was grilled at the Traffic Police Headquarters in Nairobi for hours by a team of detectives led by Traffic Commandant Shalton Mureithi. Fuzzy details of the cover-up by the police emerged after officers from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations were unable to release data records of all calls and SMSs to and from Nganga immediately after the accident. Sources privy to the investigation revealed that detectives from the DCI possibly tampered with official telephone data in a bid to conceal crucial evidence that could help in the case. Telephone logs from a mast in Tigoni, which would have placed the televangelist at the scene of the accident, were erased. It also emerged that Apostle Nganga was illegally being escorted by senior police officers during his trips. Police Inspector Christopher Nzuli Nzioka of the Kenya Police Air Wing was in the Range Rover involved in the accident. Simon Mukuria, who came out saying he was driving the vehicle, and Inspector Nzioka were accused of giving false information to the police, while Inspector Baya, who was the Tigoni Police Base Commander, was accused of neglecting his duties, and the three jointly accused of conspiring to defeat justice. For 3 years, the case has dragged on as key prosecution witnesses gave contradictory accounts. Finally, the evidence was thrown out as Chief Magistrate Godfrey Oduor ruled that the police brought in witnesses who contradicted themselves and each other. Dan Mwangi, NTV.
Right, we do have a panelist with us also to just take us through that particular story, Justice for Mercy, and we can see there's a gaming of systems here as far as the investigations is concerned. What really happened? And I want to introduce them to you. Once again, we have Professor Noah Midamba with us, who is defense and foreign policy expert, also Vice Chancellor of KC University. Also, we have with us Dr. Mumo Nzau, who is the governor's and security strategist. We do have with us Dr. Hassan Khannenje, also, who is the director of the Horn Institute. We're eagerly waiting for Tom Kagwe, who is a board member of the Independent Policing Oversight Authority. Also, we do have with us, or much later, we'll be joined by Lucy, Major Retired Lucy Miruka, who also will take us through some of the issues that we'll be discussing here today. let's just get down to the brass tacks first of all. Looking at this particular story, it has taken a long protracted time in terms of meting out justice. We would love to know, first of all, is someone really gaming the system? Is the high and the mighty and money also taking precedence in this particular case? What will be your assessment, Professor Noah Midamba?
Debarl, I usually try to stay away from this kind of thing. But you know, from the appearance, looking at everything, it seems to me that in this case, justice was not served. We do have pseudo-preachers masquerading around the country, calling themselves men of God. And these people are different people. And they ought to be unveiled for who they are, and they ought to serve time in jail, such that free our country from fleecing poor people and innocent people. And I think this case needs to be appealed, and a proper investigation needs to be done, and somebody needs to serve time in jail.
All right, let's hear from Dr. Mumo Nzau.
Yeah, when they taught me a little bit of public law, they taught us what they call a judicial process and so on. It's not very good at this point to crowd the case and talk about it, because if it's, you see, what happens is that if in the public domain something is put in the way it is coming out, the Attorney General might just put a nolle prosequi and so on, because we cannot be the police, the judges, and everything at the same time and interpret the law from here. I don't want to do that. So what is good, what is important is that let our institutions work for everyone. There is police oversight authority, which is a constitutionally anchored body, an independent police oversight authority. You know, and there are lawyers on both sides and witnesses and so on. So, you know, that is how justice is vindicated. It is not vindicated in the manner that we are trying to, is being put out here. But it's good always, of course, to, you know, to put a case across and so on. So let's leave it to the corridors of justice, the police and the various bodies that are anchored in our constitution to make sure that everything goes right with it. That's the most I can say at this point.
All right, let's hear from Dr. Hassan Khannenje.
Well, I think the reason why the family had decided to bring this into the public domain is because the relevant bodies were supposed to do their work failed. And without any other recourse, I think they elected to share it with the country regarding their plight. Now, this case, it's not alone. I think more too often in this country and in this part of the world, frankly, we have gospel profiteers who hide under the cross. Not only do they occasionally perhaps get involved in something which is in other countries would be manslaughter, if not murder, but they also commit other crimes within the church in particular, and they get away with it. And there is nothing pastoral. Even it's in fact true that some of the family members, try to be bribed. I think we should make an example out of this. If it's in fact true, he should face the full force of the law, and there shouldn't be any excuse about it. The family shouldn't be going out there to the media to actually cry for service to be served. Service should be served either way. We've just seen there's a lot of conspiracies and complicity in trying to actually cover up for these crimes. I think Pastor Nganga, if he's in fact guilty, he should face the full force of the law as a lesson to others and other gospel profiteers who are masquerading as church leaders.
All right. And of course, if maybe Dr. Mumo Nzau is not really privy to, of course, we know that Pastor Nganga walked scot-free, according to yesterday's headline. And
Yeah,
this is getting a
but
lot of angst.
that is the determination of the court of law. That is the interpretation of the law by the court. You cannot blame the, you cannot pass judgment on the judge unless, you see, we say it in judicial process, you know, that, I mean, what is placed as the law of evidence, what is placed before is weighed by various theories by the officers involved, the judicial officers, and the bench and the bar weigh it across, and the verdict comes out, and therefore it is now upon you know, the various institutions involved, for example, the oversight authority, to go back and say, probably this was not done right, and then the case is brought back to the Directorate of Public Prosecution, and then it follows its course. So, you know, by us trying to do all this, we might, you know, say something that would be prejudicial, and that's what I'm trying to avoid technically when you understand the law.
Yeah, but we're not really discussing the merits and the demerits of the law here. Of course, there's that provision of sub judice rule also in the Constitution as well, which will prohibit us really discussing, you know, the meat of a case. But looking at what we have, and this is in the public domain as well, that police also bungled what many believe was an open and shut case, right? With the evidence from the ground as well. It is a high time that we also look at these particular cases where, you know, the rich and the mighty and the poor here, you know, the poor tend to suffer because you don't have the wherewithal to fight the rich and the mighty. This is not the first case. We had Mercy Kano, who was actually knocked down by a car here along in Westlands, I should say. And of course, that particular case also just, you know, went down the tubes as well. We'll have this many cases coming to the fore, but if we do not really, you know, bring it to the spotlight and people really discuss these things, the rich will be overbearing on the poor as well. And this is the case that we want to discuss today, right? If they can actually game the system because they have the money, if they can game the system because they have the influence, then where is the common mwananchi left at?
Ideally, Debarl, nobody should be able to compromise the institutions because the Constitution is clear. You know, as a people, or as a part of our political culture, as a nation, we have to believe in our institutions. We have to support them. You see, in the Estonian model, we say, you know, people make demands, and then governments make laws to help meet those demands and implement them. But then there's what we call support. Support means being good citizens and making the law to work. Mm-hmm. So if you contravene that as a people, then we are defeating the very reason we have created these institutions. And that's why I'm saying, for example, then someone would go back again, present a new file with, you know, a plea to the court, so that, you know, the institutions follow the due procedure, and then to see if there was an anomaly in how the matter was interpreted. And then, and then the judgment can. I cannot sit here and say so and so is rich, therefore they are, or therefore say the preacher. I'm not agree. I don't go to those places. I don't know them. So you know. So that's what I can say. I don't want to pass judgment on people. I don't know them. All I can do is make sure that we have institutions that serve everyone in equal measure. That's the point I'm making here, and it's part of the drive for human security and you know, social justice in society. We have to have a standard measure for everyone. So I don't want to call them preachers and rich people. I don't know them.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's hear from Professor Noah Midamba as a wind up on it as well.
Well, all I can say from the appearance and everything, and I can understand what my colleague Mumo is dealing with. The issue is the appearance with everything that Khannenje did not receive justice that is expected. And it is true the rich get out free and the poor get to go to jail. And so in the case of you talk about Keno and many other cases, this case need to be reviewed again, and proper justice need to be served, and the person responsible need to go to jail. That's where I'm coming.
All right. Of course, we have to see if this particular cases are always watertight, and of course the Chief Justice has expressed also frustration here, and he has challenged the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the police, and the Office of the Directors or the Director of Public Prosecutions to ensure watertight corruption cases before moving to court. And in a raft of recommendations submitted during the first day of a workshop of combating corruption, the head of the judiciary maintained that the frequent adjournments will not be tolerated. The government appears to have embarked on a new phase of cutting down the vice, even as reports indicate that the levels of corruption have increased. Just let's have or take a look at that.
We want EACC collaborating very effectively with the ODPP and the judiciary to have a seamless approach towards ensuring that corruption cases are dealt with conclusively and with high impact, so that society knows there's no place one can hide with corrupt deeds.
What we are asking the EACC and the police is to carry out investigations thoroughly, and bring the suspects to court when they have evidence. We are asking the judiciary, the magistrates themselves, and the judges to do their work, and know that when there is evidence against somebody, the law requires them to convict. The law requires them to convict. We can't have this kind of like half-hearted efforts to fight corruption. You can't fight corruption that way.
Maraga says watertight cases will ensure corrupt, wealthy individuals will not have a chance of beating the system.
The message we are giving to the agencies involved: the cases are fixed before you. Look at them. What is the nature of the case before you? Let the State Council prepare, so that and the magistrates look at the churches and see exactly what is there. The main thing we are not going to allow anymore is the issue of adjournments. I have told the EACC officials here that when they come to court and they come and they are applying for adjournments, we are going to give them 1 or 2 adjournments. After that, we will dismiss their cases. And we will tell the public where the problem is.
And 4 bodies of people who drowned while crossing Nzau River in Mwingi on the 16th of April have been recovered. The 4 went missing after the car was swept away by the swollen river. Meanwhile, a humanitarian crisis is looming in the county of Tana River following a flash floods that have caused destruction and loss of property. More than 250,000 residents in the Tana Delta area have been affected by this. And of course, we also are waking into a very disturbing headline on the front page of Star today, or this is actually the splash death toll hits 113 as 10 counties flooded, 260,000 displaced by heavy rain as weather experts warn of more floods. Also, Health CS Cecily Kariuki says rescue efforts hampered by damaged roads and poor facilities. We have the story tucked on page 4 and 5 of Star today. But how are we tackling this issue of floods right now? That's a question that we want also to throw to our panelists to, yes, just talk to us in light of this, because it seems we're always waiting for the other shoe to drop when it comes to, you know, crisis that is happening in the country. This is what we want to continue with our discussion with our panelists here. Let's hear from Noah Midamba in terms of preparation.
Pass it on to me.
Very well.
Debarl? Yes,
okay,
please.
all good. I mean, the best approach to disaster management is the preventive one. And it comes with having good records about what has happened before and how that has been done to address that before. And then, from an incremental fashion, then go building, and so on. We don't start from scratch. We go with information that we have, then we go building for better ways of responding and so on. But of course, each time, circumstantially and procedurally, there are new things and new challenges. But the best thing is to make sure that we can never go beyond or lower than this point each time we are responding to something, because we have seen this before. So it's about planning well and executing well each time and taking lessons, as we go, yonder on these issues.
All right, Professor Noah Midamba, have we done a good job on this? It's always a knee-jerk reaction because we always wonder about these particular floods.
Debarl, I've been calling for home security or a similar program that the U.S. have. And if you look at that program is very, very comprehensive.
Yes.
It involved disaster management, it involved terrorism, it involved all kind of natural and other things that happen. None of us can sit here and say we did not expect this rain. We have intelligence, we have information, we have people, weather people who have predicted a massive rain pouring all over the country. And yet, we can sit here and behave as if it just happened and we didn't know. This cannot happen. We cannot continue giving any excuse of this kind of thing. Preparation should have been made. Most people should have been moved out to lower area before the big storm came. And I know we are acting now and we are spending money, and next year will be the same thing. That has to stop.
So we always remain none the wiser in terms of when it comes to learning as
Correct.
well from previous episodes as well. Let's see from Dr. Khannenje.
Debarl, you cannot prevent natural disasters, but you can at least try to plan for them, because they do happen. This is not the first time we're having such rains.
Yes.
A lot of us can remember way back in 1997, 98, the El Nino rains and what they did. So whether it's in the city, where the drainage system is horrible, or out there where we actually have information that's likely to happen, but then year after year after year, it keeps happening. Like Budalangi, for instance, You see, as government and as a country, it is important that we are proactive and not reactive. Now, one of the things that is lacking, especially with some of the departments charged with the responsibility of ensuring that doesn't happen, is a lot of times not just lack of foresight, but also lack of ownership. And that in case a disaster happens, I'm going to be responsible for this. And so once a problem is taken care of, or an attempt is made to take care of it this year, this problem, the strategy never goes beyond a year. It stays within that month or within that week. Stuff like that should change. We have, as Professor just mentioned, we have intelligence, we have information, we have weather forecasts of what is likely to happen, but we just see it there, waiting for it to happen, then start asking for the entire world. Number two, he did allude to the American system and how they work. It is important that when a disaster happens, you have systems in place that can respond to it in terms of evacuating people early enough, in terms of taking care of them, in terms of feeding or relocation or housing or shelter, but also a team that can actually help in reconstruction and make sure that the next tragedy is going to have a less impact on the society compared to the previous one. These are things a lot of times we don't talk about, We complain only when a problem is happening, ask for the world to help us, but then we actually don't do anything about it. I think we should change the way we do things going forward.
All right, thank you. And of course, allow me to introduce also Major Retired Lucy Mukuria. She is the founder and the CEO of True North. Karibu sana, and welcome to Standing on Guard, where we turn our focus on the enemy, issues of security as well. But you can weigh in. I know, aside from you being, of course, a person who's really interested, has a flash of interest also in security matters. Also, you're a farmer as well. And looking at how we've handled the floods, what will be your reaction?
I think I want to begin by saying that ideas outlive organizations. You know, what Doc is saying here is true in that we cannot prevent these disasters, but how can we better be ready to address them? And I think one of the things that we need to be able to do is to understand that we need to learn how to respond and not to react. And in my training of disaster management, one of the few things that was very clear was that disaster is managed.
Yes.
And response is part of that management. And therefore, you must have continuous training. You must continuously prepare so that, you know, we usually say that if you really want to win the war, it's all about the training, not fighting the war. And it is the same when it comes to managing our disasters that are happening here. And we must therefore not wait until something happens to do something about it. We must literally commit resources that have to do with personnel and equipment and brains that go into the whole cycle of disaster management. We have to make that commitment. So as a farmer, I think the best way to begin is by the example I see, for example, with the Netherlands.
Yes.
You know, people say they were given Holland, and they made the Netherlands. The whole place is full of water. But you will never hear, you know, why? Because they applied themselves to actually create an environment that would work for them. What is stopping us from doing that? What?
Good question. What is stopping us from doing that?
Yeah.
Right. Oh.